Welcome back to another video on the channel. The semi-finals of the Australian Open are set. Novak Djokovic against Aslan Karatsev and Daniil Medvedev against Stefanos Tsitsipas. Recording this video straight after watching one of the best comebacks you'll probably ever see in Grand Slam history, with Tsitsipas coming back from 2 sets of love down to beat Rafael Nadal in 5. Undoubtedly match of the tournament so far, and just a perfect example of why tennis is such a brilliant sport. So I'm going to start off now by looking at Novak Djokovic against Aslan Karatsev and look back on both of their quarterfinals. And I think Djokovic against Zverev was a perfect example as to why 5 sets Grand Slam tennis is a completely different story to a regular 3-set tournament and match. I thought Zverev started the match brilliantly well. He looked to extend the points, which was surprising. I did say in my preview that I thought he could have the advantage in longer points early on in the match, but as the match wore on and Djokovic started to use his variations and find his consistency, that he would probably take over. But Zverev dominated early on. Djokovic looked rushed. He tried to be aggressive and win points early. The forehand was errant again, which you need to clean up for the semi-finals and final if he was to reach that stage. But Zverev served brilliantly in the opening set. He rallied well and he performed very well in the tie-break. And at that point, the big question was, for me personally, does Zverev actually believe he can win this match now, and can he keep this level up? And you ask them questions because you know Djokovic is going to get better and that he's got gears to go through. And the answer was Zverev couldn't sustain his level. We've seen it many times over the years that players outside the big three that are challenging and hoping to break through can play incredibly well for an hour and edge the opening set. They can match and better Djokovic and Nadal and Federer. But at that point, you've still got another 2 sets to win. And players like Nadal and Djokovic and Federer just get better and better throughout the match. They find that consistency, they start using the variations, the serve starts to warm up, they really start timing the ground strokes and sending you side to side. And we saw that again, from set 2, Zverev started missing first serves, Djokovic found his serve and started to return better. And the whole complexion and the flow of the match just completely changed. Djokovic then had the confidence behind him and the wind in his sail, and Zverev seemed to completely lose belief and energy that he had in that opening set. From set 3 and 4, I think I refer to it like a football or rugby match, and there's always a saying that it was like a game of 2 halves, and I thought that the 3rd and 4th sets were like sets of 2 halves. Zverev would play incredibly well and be aggressive and get an early lead, and then Djokovic would dominate the back end and win the crucial points and almost steal the sets. And I never like to say a player deserves to win because matches are won and lost on the big points, but I just feel like Zverev got into match winning opportunities. He was 3-love, and that's in the 4th set, had 2 points to make it 4-love. And a player with the serving and the quality of Alexander Zverev shouldn't be losing that set. He should be able to close it out from 3-love, 40-15. But I feel like he went into his shell a little bit. I think he was at his best when he was aggressive, he was attacking the net, he was taking time away from Djokovic. When he seemed to see the winning line in sets, he just seemed to go into his shell and back himself away from the baseline and allow Djokovic into rallies and move him around the court. And that's when we saw Djokovic at his best. Djokovic played incredibly well in the 4th set. He returned well and served fantastically well, but I do feel like it was a huge opportunity missed for Alexander Zverev. But it was Djokovic that found some of his best tennis of the match at the back end of that 4th set and took it in 4. So moving on now to Aslan Karatsev, and this is just a wonderful story. He was 114th ranked in the world. I think he's qualified for his 1 Grand Slam in the past. He's came past Diego Schwartzman, Felix Auger-Aliassime, and now Grigor Dimitrov, and it's just a case of when is this fairy tale story going to come to an end. I think you can't take anything away from Karatsev. He was probably expected to get to the 2nd or 3rd round at a push, but I do think he's had elements of luck during the draw. He was brilliant against Schwartzman and Gerasimov early on. I think Aliassime should have won that match. Aliassime was absolutely coursing the 2 sets up and just completely fell apart. Grigor Dimitrov dominated Karatsev in the opening set, and I think had Dimitrov got through, he really could have troubled Djokovic, particularly with the backhand slice of the Djokovic forehand, which isn't working so well in this tournament. Dimitrov was absolutely brilliant, I thought, in that opening set against Karatsev. The touch, the movement, the backhand, the serve, everything looked to be on point, and I was watching that match thinking Dimitrov's in this form can certainly go all the way and actually win this tournament. So for him to get the injury was a huge shame. Credit to Karatsev, I thought he battled incredibly well in that second set when Dimitrov was still playing at a high level. Karatsev managed to dig in, he saved break points, and then he converted of his own to take the second set 6-4. And from that point on, Dimitrov couldn't really move. The movement wasn't there. He was only serving at 95, 100 mile an hour serves. And Karatsev just took his opportunities, stayed focused, and ended up taking apart Dimitrov pretty comprehensively in 4 sets. But that was largely down to Dimitrov being injured. In the opening set when Dimitrov was at his freshest, he was a different class to Karatsev, and I think he would have come through that one pretty comfortably had the injury not been a problem. So looking ahead to the match between Djokovic and Karatsev, and you can't predict anything else other than a Novak Djokovic win. We know he's 8-time Grand Slam champion here. I don't think he's played his absolute best tennis, which is, I think, partly down to the injury. But as I say, Karatsev's had an unbelievable journey and played some incredible tennis to get to this stage. But I can't see Novak Djokovic putting in a poor performance against Karatsev in an Australian Open semi-final. We know when Djokovic has reached the semi-final of the Australian Open, he's always went on to win the tournament. I just think Djokovic is serving so well at the moment. He's returning well, particularly from the second set onwards when he warms into the match. His forehand certainly needs cleaning up, but his double-handed backhand looks great. I still think the drop shot again needs work, but overall I think Djokovic is in a good place, and he's a player that seems to increase his level and go through the gears from the semi-final stage onwards. And I think especially if he does that, then he'll have too much class and variety and power for Karatsev. But I think this is a good match for Djokovic. Karatsev's got very solid ground strokes, he's capable of rallying, he's a good defender, and we could see some extended rallies in this one. And Djokovic struggled in the long points, especially in the open set against Zverev. So I think the more practice Djokovic gets and time into the ball and use to the court might prepare him better for the final. So I think Karatsev, he'll do himself proud in this one. I think he'll put in a good performance. He's got nothing to lose, and as I say, he's going to be ranked, I think, 43rd in the world now. He's guaranteed himself nearly $500,000, so he's still won at this tournament, whatever the scoreline against Djokovic. But I'm sure he'll go out there and give it a good go. But ultimately, I think he'll get outclassed, and Djokovic will take it in straight sets. Moving on now to Daniil Medvedev against Andrei Rublev, and I'm going to look back at that Medvedev-Rublev quarter-final, which did go as expected. It was a real physical battle, but Medvedev's just got that ultra consistency. He's got the winning form. He's hugely confident every time he steps out in court, and he just had the extra quality in crucial moments, and Rublev didn't play well enough. Rublev, I talked about in my preview. I said that if he had any chance of winning this match, he had to serve better. He had to try and get some free points and avoid those long rallies which favour Medvedev. But Rublev made just 47% of first serves, 39 unforced errors, and he didn't play the big points well. So it didn't really give him a chance of winning the match when you look back at the stats. I think Rublev's struggle is his lack of variety. He doesn't have a good slice backhand, which doesn't allow him to come into the net too much. He doesn't serve and volley, and he knew coming into this match that his plan A probably wouldn't work and would play into the hands of Medvedev. He's lost every occasion against Medvedev so far. So Medvedev just stuck to what's worked in the past. He extended the rallies, he redirected Rublev's pace, he counter-punched well, and just outlasted Rublev. Rublev didn't have the power or that quality match-winning shot to really hurt Medvedev at any point, and as I say, Medvedev just redirected his pace and waited for the Rublev errors, which came a number of times. When you know Medvedev's as good as he is behind the baseline defending, I feel like Rublev missed his opportunity. You have to do something different. You have to try the serve and volley, you have to try a drop shot and try and bring him in the net, use a slice. And he just didn't have those weapons. He just kept trying to pummel forehands and backhands in the corners, and Medvedev was reading everything and just redirecting play, and it was all very easy, I thought, for Medvedev. He stepped it up a couple of times in sets to get the break, and it was a straight sets win, and a good performance from Medvedev, but a one that, he didn't get too pushed in. So I'm going to move on now to Tsitsipas against Rafa Nadal. And in the opening 2 sets, this match didn't really catch fire, and I was quite disappointed by the quality. I expected Tsitsipas to win this one pre-match. I did predict him to win. I just thought the court would suit Tsitsipas, and that if he could execute his game plan, then he would take apart Nadal and break through the defence. But I did also mention in my preview that I thought Tsitsipas had to be patient. Nadal was always going to throw up different variations and huge shots of his own and spin. And I think Tsitsipas fell into Nadal's trap in the opening couple of sets. He just tried to blast through Rafa and win points very quickly, and that forced a number of unforced errors. He lost the opening 2 sets convincingly. Rafa was playing well, Tsitsipas was playing very poor. And at that point it did look a long way back, but I was watching it and I said, if Tsitsipas can just find some form and edge the third set, then this could very much be game on. And yeah, that was the case in the opening 2 sets. I think both players were holding serve pretty comfortably. Nadal wasn't dropping his level and he was profiting off the odd poor service game by Tsitsipas, and Nadal's done that many times over his career. He's ultra consistent, he stays at a good high level, and he just waits for the opponent to throw in a bad game. That's what happened in the first 2. Nadal served impeccably. That was giving him huge confidence. He was batting it up with the forehand. He was creating great angles in the backhand, defending well against Tsitsipas ground strokes, which was forcing errors. And I think from the third set onwards, Tsitsipas worked out that he had to be more patient. He had to time his attacks. He had to go toe to toe from the baseline with Nadal and just wear him down. In the opening 2 sets, he lacked execution. In the third, fourth, and fifth, he certainly didn't. I think the third set he played with less risk and he cut the errors out of his game. He made it competitive. But at one point Nadal had won 27 points consecutively on serve. I think it was 6-0 to love. And it tells you all you need to know about how well Nadal was serving. In the third set tie-break, Nadal played a very uncharacteristic-like tie-break. He made 5 unforced errors. He missed a couple of overheads, a routine forehand. And at that point I thought, Nadal a few years ago, or Nadal playing at his best, would never lose that tie-break. He would have closed that match out in straight sets. But he almost gifted the tie-break to Tsitsipas. There was a momentum shift, and Tsitsipas took huge advantage of that. I was mightily impressed by the attitude that Tsitsipas showed to keep serving. He was waiting for the Nadal to dip in form, and it came in that tie-break. It came in the 4th set. And yeah, his perseverance, Tsitsipas, and ability to keep rallying with Nadal and fire the backhands down the line and the forehands cross court, keep up with the serve. It was all very impressive, and it was a case of when he won that 4th set, he had all the momentum. I thought Nadal looked like he was physically struggling more than Tsitsipas. I don't think Nadal's movement was perfect in that 5th, but the level in the 5th increased certainly from both players, both holding serve comfortably. And it was always going to be decided on a couple of points, and it was always going to be cruel on the loser. And again, very unlike Rafa Nadal, he played a terrible service game at 5-5, the most important game of the match arguably, to guarantee himself a match-deciding tie-break. And he threw in 4 unforced errors, got broken to love. And by the time Rafa turned round and produced some solid tennis again, it was all too late. He made Tsitsipas work very hard to serve it out. But Tsitsipas did eventually finish it with an unbelievable backhand down the line, and just what a comeback and what a moment, and perhaps career-changing win for Stefanos Tsitsipas. I always feel like if a next-gen player can get a win over Djokovic and Nadal at Slam, it can completely change your mentality and belief for that tournament and also for the rest of your career. To come back from 2 sets down as well just shows that you can pretty much pull off any win from any position. So I expect Tsitsipas to go on now and give this tournament a hell of a go and be close to winning it, if anything. So looking at Medvedev, Tsitsipas, this is a real 50-50. I think Djokovic is a huge favourite in his semi-final, but this one's very, very close. I think Medvedev's looked unstoppable so far, but in the matches that he's played, but he's had a great draw. I think, as I mentioned in my preview, and I've just talked about, Rublev is a great matchup for Medvedev. He's never beaten Medvedev, and I don't think he has that match-winning shot, so Medvedev's able to defend and counter-punch very easily, which is when he's at his best. So this will be Medvedev's toughest match, I think, by some way, and I'm just going to edge towards Tsitsipas to win this one. I think, as I've mentioned, when I look back on that quarter-final against Rafa, he tried to blast through Rafa in the opening 2 sets and made many, many errors. He will learn from that, and the fact that he then broke down Nadal, who's one of the best in the world, and won 3 straight sets with patient, controlled aggression, that'll give him confidence going into that Medvedev match and a clear game plan. He knows he can't try to just win points quick and rush to the net. He has to be patient, and I think he's got the ability and the consistency to rally with Medvedev, and I also feel like he's got a bigger weight to shot, which allow him to come in. I think the fact that Tsitsipas attacks the net will be the difference in this one, especially in a fast hard court. Rublev rallied with Medvedev but didn't have the power or the quality to finish points, especially at the net, whereas Tsitsipas does have that quality. He does have the forehand and the backhand with huge amounts of power that I think can even break down the defences of Medvedev at times. I believe Medvedev will frustrate Tsitsipas with quality counter-punching and forced errors, but as long as Tsitsipas times his attacks, gets on the front foot and attacks the net, I do think he can win this one. And I don't want to downplay Medvedev at all. I think he's a top 5 player, no doubt. He's 11-0 against top 10 players in recent form, which is an incredible feat. But I just haven't been that impressed with Medvedev or his serve yet so far in this tournament. But I feel like he's a player that will produce his best in a big match like this. So I'm expecting to see a much improved and cleaner performance from Medvedev than what we've seen so far in the tournament. But Tsitsipas is just coming off the back of a monster win, and I think these courts suit his game style down to a T. And if he can execute, then I think he takes out Medvedev possibly in 5 sets. But yeah, I see a Djokovic and Tsitsipas final, which would be a fantastic watch. But whatever the final is now, we've had a fantastic tournament, and I'm sure we've got 3 great matches to come. So leave your predictions for the semi-finals in the comments below. Please like if you ever enjoyed. Leave a subscription as well, that's always much appreciated, and I will see you on the next video.